reading of this book here. It is The Old Man and the Sea by Mr. Ernest Hemingway. Right. I have to apologize if you can hear some voices in the background in this video. It's because I'm recording this video in the daytime on a Sunday. And let's just say the walls in my apartment building are not very thick and not very isolated. So if you hear some voices, it's my neighbors talking or doing stuff. But hopefully it won't be too bad. Alright. So, last time we got to page 55, I believe. Or we got through page 55, rather. Which means that we have about 45 pages left of the book. And I can't promise you that we'll get all the way through today. But let's just see how far we get and take it from there. Okay? So, this is where we left off. And at this point, the old man is out at sea, where he has hooked this really big fish, the big one he was looking for. However, the fish is really big and really, really strong. So he can't just pull it out of the water and bring it back to shore. He has to fight it first. And he's getting tired. But so is the fish. So let's continue here where we left off. Okay. He let his hand dry in the air, then grasped the line with it and eased himself as much as he could, and allowed himself to be pulled forward against the wood, so that the boat took the strain as much or more than he did. I'm learning how to do it, he thought. This part of it anyway. Then too, remember he hasn't eaten since he took the bait, and he's huge and needs much food. I have eaten the whole bonito. Tomorrow I will eat the dolphin. He called it dorado. Perhaps I should eat some of it when I clean it. It will be harder to eat than the bonito, but then nothing is easy. How do you feel, fish? He asked aloud. I feel good, and my left hand is getting better, and I have food for a night and a day. Pull the boat, fish. He did not truly feel good, because the pain from the cord across his back had almost passed pain and gone into a dullness that he mistrusted. But I have had worse things than that, he thought. My hand is only cut a little, and the cramp is gone from the other. My legs are all right. Also, now I have gained on him in the question of sustenance. It was dark now, as it becomes dark quickly after the sun sets in September. He lay against the worn wood of the bow and rested all that he could. The first stars were out. He did not know the name of Rigel, but he saw it and knew soon they would all be out, and he would have all his distant friends. The fish is my friend too, he said aloud. I have never seen or heard of such a fish. But I must kill him. I'm glad we do not have to try to kill the stars. Imagine if each day a man must try to kill the moon, he thought. The moon runs away. But imagine if a man each day should have to try to kill the sun. We were born lucky, he thought. Then he was sorry for the great fish that had nothing to eat, and his determination to kill him never relaxed in his sorrow for him. How many people will he feed, he thought. But are they worthy to eat him? No, of course not. There is no one worthy of eating him from the manner of his behavior and his great dignity. I do not understand these things, he thought, but it is good that we do not have to try to kill the sun or the moon or the stars. It is enough to live on the sea and kill our true brothers. Now, he thought, I must think about the drag. It has its perils and its merits. I may lose so much line that I will lose him if he makes his effort and the drag made by the oars is in place, and the boat loses all her lightness. Her lightness prolongs both our suffering, but it is my safety, since he has great speed that he has never yet employed. No matter what passes, I must gut the dolphin so he does not spoil, and eat some of him to be strong. Now I will rest an hour more and feel that he is solid and steady before I move back to the stern to do the work and make the decision. In the meantime, I can see how he acts and if he shows any changes. The oars are a good trick, but it has reached the time to play for safety. He is much fish still, and I saw that the hook was in the corner of his mouth, and he has kept his mouth tight shut. The punishment of the hook is nothing. The punishment of hunger, and that he is against something that he does not comprehend, is everything. Rest now, old man, and let him work until your next duty comes. He rested for what he believed to be 2 hours. The moon did not rise now until late, and he had no way of judging the time. Nor was he really resting, except comparatively. He was still bearing the pull of the fish across his shoulders, but he placed his left hand on the gunwale of the bow and confided more and more of the resistance to the fish to the skiff itself. How simple it would be if I could make the line fast, he thought. But with one small lurch he could break it. I must cushion the pull of the line with my body, and at all times be ready to give line with both hands. But you have not slept yet, old man, he said aloud. It is half a day and a night, and now another day, and you have not slept. You must devise a way so that you sleep a little, if he is quiet and steady. If you do not sleep, you might become unclear in the head. I'm clear enough in the head, he thought. Too clear. I'm as clear as the stars that are my brothers. Still I must sleep. They sleep, and the moon and the sun sleep, and even the ocean sleeps sometimes on certain days when there is no current and a flat calm. But remember to sleep, he thought. Make yourself do it, and devise some simple and sure way about the lines. Now go back and prepare the dolphin. It is too dangerous to rig the oars dangerous as a drag if you must sleep. I could go without sleeping, he told himself, but it would be too dangerous. He started to work his way back to the stern on his hands and knees, being careful not to jerk against the fish. He may be half asleep himself, he thought, but I do not want him to rest. He must pull until he dies. Back in the stern, he turned so that his left hand held the strain of the line across his shoulders and drew his knife from its sheath with his right hand. The stars were bright now, and he saw the dolphin clearly, and he pushed the blade of his knife into his head and drew him out from under the stern. He put one of his feet on the fish and slid him quickly from the vent up to the tip of his lower jaw. Then he put his knife down and gutted him with his right hand, scooping him clean and pulling the gills there. He felt the maw heavy and slippery in his hands, and he slid it open. There were 2 flying fish inside. They were fresh and hard, and he laid them side by side and dropped the guts and the gills over the stern. They sank, leaving a trail of phosphorescence in the water. The dolphin was cold and leprous gray-white now in the starlight, and the old man skinned one side of him while he held his right foot on the fish's head. Then he turned him over and skinned the other side and cut each side off from the head down to the tail. He slid the carcass overboard and looked to see if there was any swirl in the water, but there was only the light of its slow descent. He turned then and placed the 2 flying fish inside the 2 fillets of fish, and putting his knife back in its sheath, he worked his way slowly back to the bow. His back was bent with the weight of the line across it, and he carried the fish in his right hand. Back in the bow, he laid the 2 fillets of fish out in the wood with the flying fish beside them. After that, he settled the line across his shoulders in a new place and held it again with his left hand resting on the gunwale. Then he leaned over the side and washed the flying fish in the water, noting the speed of the water against his hand. His hand was phosphorescent from skinning the fish, and he watched the flow of the water against it. The flow was less strong, and as he rubbed the side of his hand against the planking of the skiff, particles of phosphorus floated off and drifted slowly astern. "He's tiring, or he's resting," the old man said. "Now let me get through the eating of this dolphin and get some rest and a little sleep." Under the stars and with the night colder all the time, he ate half of one of the dolphin fillets and one of the flying fish, gutted and with its head cut off. "What an excellent fish dolphin is to eat cooked," he said, "and what a miserable fish raw. I will never go in a boat again without salt or limes." If I had brains, I would have splashed water on the bow all day, and drying it would have made salt, he thought. But then I did not hook the dolphin until almost sunset. Still, it was a lack of preparation, but I have chewed it all well, and I'm not nauseated. The sky was clouding over to the east, and one after another the stars he knew were gone. It looked now as though he were moving into a great the fish is calm and steady. He held the line tight in his right hand and then pushed his thigh against his right hand as he leaned all his weight against the wood of the bow. Then he passed the line a little lower on his shoulder and braced his left hand on it. My right hand can hold it as long as it is braced, he thought. If it relaxes in sleep, my left hand will wake me as the line goes out. It is hard on the right hand, but he's used to punishment. Even if I sleep 20 minutes or half an hour, it is good. He lay forward, cramping himself against the line with all of his body, putting all his weight onto his right hand, and he was asleep. He did not dream of the lions, but instead of a vast school of porpoise that stretched for 8 or 10 miles, and it was in the time of their mating, and they would leap high into the air and return into the same hole they had made in the water when they leaped. Then he dreamed that he was in the village on his bed, and there was a norther, and he was very cold, and his right arm was asleep because his head had rested on it instead of a pillow. After that, he began to dream of the long yellow beach, and he saw the first of the lions come down onto it in the early dark, and then the other lions came, and he rested his chin on the wood of the bows where the ship lay anchored with the evening offshore breeze, and he waited to see if there would be more lions, and he was happy. The moon had been up for a long time, but he slept on, and the fish pulled on steadily, and the boat moved into the tunnel of the clouds. He woke with a jerk of his right fist coming up against his face, and the line burning out through his right hand. He had no feeling of his left hand, but he braked all he could with his right, and the line rushed out. Finally, his left hand found the line, and he leaned back against the line, and now it burned his back and his left hand, and his left hand was taking all the strain and cutting badly. He looked back at the coils of line, and they were feeding smoothly. Just then, the fish jumped, making a great bursting of the ocean, and then a heavy fall. Then he jumped again and again, and the boat was going fast, although line was still racing out, and the old man was racing the strain to breaking point, and racing it to breaking point again and again. He had been pulled down tight onto the bow, and his face was in the cut slice of dolphin, and he could not move. This is what we waited for, he thought. So now let us take it. Make him pay for the line, he thought. Make him pay for it. He could not see the fish's jumps, but only heard the breaking of the ocean and the heavy splash as he fell. The speed of the line was cutting his hands badly, but he had always known this would happen, and he tried to keep the cutting across the calloused parts and not let the line slip into the palm or cut the fingers. If the boy was here, he would wet the coils of line, he thought. Yes, if the boy were here. If the boy were here. The line went out and out and out, but it was slowing now, and he was making the fish earn each inch of it. Now he got his head up from the wood and out of the slice of fish that his cheek had crushed. Then he was on his knees, and then he rose slowly to his feet. He was seeding line, but more slowly all the time. of all that new line through the water. Yes, he thought, and now he has jumped more than a dozen times and filled the sacks along his back with air, and he cannot go down deep to die where I cannot bring him up. He will start circling soon, and then I must work on him. I wonder what started him so suddenly. Could it have been hunger that made him desperate? Or was he frightened by something in the night? Maybe he suddenly felt fear. But he was such a calm, strong fish, and he seemed so fearless and so confident. It is strange. You better be fearless and confident yourself, old man, he said. You're holding him again, but you cannot get line. But soon he has to circle. The old man held him with his left hand at his shoulders now, and stooped down and scooped up water in his right hand to get the crushed dolphin flesh off of his face. He was afraid that it might nauseate him, and he would vomit and lose his strength. When his face was cleaned, he washed his right hand in the water over the side, and then let it stay in the salt water while he watched the first light come before the sunrise. He's headed almost east, he thought. That means he's tired and going with the current. Soon he will have to circle. Then our true work begins. After he judged that his right hand had been in the water long enough, he took it out and looked at it. It is not bad, he said, and pain does not matter to a man. He took hold of the line carefully, so that it did not fit into any of the fresh line cuts, and shifted his weight so that he could put his left hand into the sea on the other side of the skiff. You did not do so badly for something worthless, he said to his left hand. But there was a moment when I could not find you. Why was I not born with two good hands, he thought. Perhaps it was my fault in not training that one properly. But God knows he has had enough chances to learn. He did not do so badly in the night, though, and he has only crabbed once. If he crabs again, let the line cut him off. When he thought that he knew that he was not being clear-headed, and he thought he should choose some more of the dolphin. But I can't, he told himself. It is better to be light-headed than to lose your strength from nausea. And I know I cannot keep it if I eat it, since my face was in it. I will keep it for an emergency until it goes bad, but it is too late to try for strength now through nourishment. You're stupid, he told himself. Eat the other flying fish. It was there, cleaned and ready, and he picked it up with his left hand and ate it, chewing the bones carefully and eating all of it down to the tail. It has more nourishment than almost any fish, he thought. At least the kind of strength that I need. Now I have done what I can, he thought. Let him begin to circle and let the fight come. The sun was rising for the third time since he had put to sea when the fish started to circle. He could not see by the slant of the line that the fish was circling. It was too early for that. He just felt a faint slackening of the pressure of the line, and he commenced to pull on it gently with his right hand. It tightened as always, but just when he reached the point where it would break, line began to come in. He slipped his his shoulders and head from under the line and began to pull in the line steadily and gently. He used both of his hands in a swinging motion and tried to do the pulling as much as he could with his body and his legs. His old legs and shoulders pivoted with the swinging of the pulling. "It is a very big circle," he said, "but he is circling." Then the line would not come in anymore, and he held it until he saw the drops jumping from it in the sun. Then it started out, and the old man knelt down and let it go grudgingly back into the dark water. "He's making the far part of his circle now," he said. "I must hold all I can," he thought. "The strain will shorten his circle each time. Perhaps in an hour I will see him. Now I must convince him, and then I must kill him." But the fish kept on circling slowly, and the old man was wet with sweat and tired deep into his bones 2 hours later. But the circles were much shorter now, and from the way the line slanted, he could tell the fish had risen steadily while he swam. For an hour, the old man had been seeing black spots before his eyes, and the sweat salted his eyes and salted the cut under his eye and on his forehead. He was not afraid of the black spots. They were normal at the tension that he was pulling on the line. Twice, though, he had felt faint and dizzy, and that had worried him. "I could not fail myself and die on a fish like this," he said. "Now that I have him coming so beautifully, God help me endure. I'll say 100 Our Fathers and 100 Hail Marys, but I cannot say them now." "Consider them," said, he thought. "I'll say them later." Just then he felt a sudden banging and jerking on the line he held with his 2 hands. It was sharp and hard-feeling and heavy. "He's hitting the wire leader with his spear," he thought. "That was bound to come. He had to do that. It may make him jump, though, and I would rather he stayed circling now. The jumps were necessary for him to take air, but after that each one can widen the opening of the hook wound, and he can throw the hook." "Don't jump, fish," he said. "Don't jump." The fish hit the wire several times more, and each time he shook his head, the old man gave up a little line. "I must hold his pain where it is," he thought. "Mine does not matter. I can control mine. But his pain could drive him mad." After a while, the fish stopped beating at the wire and started circling slowly again. The old man was gaining line steadily now, but he felt faint again. He lifted some sea water with his left hand and put it on his head. Then he put more on and rubbed the back of his neck. "I have no cramps," he said. "He'll be up soon, and I can last. You have to last. Don't even speak of it." He kneeled against the bow and, for a moment, slipped the line over his back again. "I'll rest now while he goes out on the circle, and then stand up and work on him when he comes in," he decided. It was a great temptation to rest in the bow and let the fish make one circle by himself without recovering any line. But when the strain showed the fish had turned to come toward the boat, the old man rose to his feet and started the pivoting and the weaving pulling that brought in all the line he gained. I'm tireder than I've ever been, he thought, and now the trade wind is rising. But that will be good to take him in with. I need that badly. I'll rest on the next turn as he goes out, he said. I feel much better. Then, in 2 or 3 turns more, I will have him. His straw hat was far on the back of his head, and he sank into the bow with a pull of the line as he felt the fish turn. You work now, fish, he thought. I'll take you at the turn. The sea had risen considerably, but it was a fair weather breeze, and he had to have it to get home. I'll just steer south and west, he said. A man is never lost at sea, and it is a long island. It was on the 3rd turn that he saw the fish first. He saw him first as a dark shadow that took so long to pass under the boat that he could not believe its length. No, he said, he can't be that big. But he was that big, and at the end of this circle, he came to the surface only 30 yards away, and the man saw his tail out of water. It was higher than a big scythe blade, and a very pale lavender above the dark blue water. It raked back, and as the fish swam just below the surface, the old man could see his huge bulk and the purple stripes that banded him. His dorsal fin was down, and his huge pectorals were spread wide. On this circle, the old man could see the fish's eye and the 2 gray sucking fish that swam around him. Sometimes they attached themselves to him. Sometimes they darted off. Sometimes they would swim easily in his shadow. They were each over 3 feet long, and when they swam fast, they lashed their whole bodies like eels. The old man was sweating now, but from something else besides the sun. On each calm, placid turn the fish made, he was gaining line, and he was sure that in 2 turns he would have a chance to get the harpoon in. But I must get him close, he thought. I mustn't try for the head. I must get the heart. Be calm and strong, old man, he said. On the next circle, the fish's back was out, but he was a little too far from the boat. On the next circle, he was still too far away, but he was higher out of the water, and the old man was sure that by gaining some more line, he could have him alongside. He had rigged his harpoon long before, and its coil of light rope was in a round basket, and the end was made fast to the bit in the bow. The fish was coming in on his circle now, calm and beautiful looking, and only his great tail moving. The old man pulled on him all that he could to bring him closer. For just a moment, the fish turned a little on his side. Then he straightened himself and began another circle. I moved him, the old man said. I moved him then. He felt faint again now, but he held on the great fish all the strain that he could. I moved him, he thought. Maybe this time I can get him over. Pull, hands, he thought. Hold up, legs. Last for me, head. Last for me. You never went. This time I'll pull him over. But when he put all of his effort on, starting it well out before the fish came alongside, and pulling with all his strength, the fish pulled part way over and then righted himself and swam away. "Fish," the old man said. "Fish, you are going to have to die anyway. Do you have to kill me too?" That way nothing is accomplished, he thought. His mouth was too dry to speak, but he could not reach for the water now. I must get him alongside this time, he thought. I am not good for many more turns. Yes, you are, he told himself. You're good forever. On the next turn, he nearly had him, but again the fish righted himself and swam slowly away. You are killing me, fish, the old man thought. But you have a right to. Never have I seen a greater or more beautiful or a calmer or more noble thing than you, brother. Come on and kill me. I do not care who kills who. Now you are getting confused in the head, he thought. You must keep your head clear. Keep your head clear and know how to suffer like a man or a fish, he thought. Clear up, head, he said in a voice you could hardly hear. Clear up. Twice more it was the same on the turns. I do not know, the old man thought. He had been on the point of feeling himself go each time. I do not know, but I will try it once more. He tried it once more, and he felt himself going when he turned the fish. The fish righted himself and swam off again slowly with the great tail weaving in the air. I'll try it again, the old man promised, although his hands were mushy now, and he could only see well in flashes. He tried it again, and it was the same. So he thought, and he felt himself going before he started. I will try it once again. He took all his pain and what was left of his strength and his long-gone pride, and he put it against the fish's agony. And the fish came over onto his side and swam gently on his side, his bill almost touching the planking of the skiff, and started to pass the boat, long, deep, wide, silver, and barred with purple, and interminable in the water. The old man dropped the line and put his foot on it and lifted the harpoon as high as he could and drove it down with all his strength and more strength he had just summoned into the fish's side, just behind the great chest fin that rose high in the air to the altitude of the man's chest. He felt the iron go in, and he leaned on it and drove it further and then pushed all his weight after it. Then the fish came alive, with his death in him, and rose high out of the water, showing all his great length and width, and all his power and his beauty. He seemed to hang in the air above the old man in the skiff. Then he fell into the water with a crash that sent spray over the old man and over all of the skiff. The old man felt faint and sick, and he could not see well, but he cleared the harpoon line and let it run slowly through his raw hands. And when he could see, he saw the fish was on his back, with his silver belly up. The shaft of the harpoon was projecting at an angle from the fish's shoulder, and the sea was discoloring with the red of the blood from his heart. First, it was dark as a shawl in the blue water that was more than a mile deep. Then it spread like a cloud. The fish was silvery and still and floated with the waves. The old man looked carefully in the glimpse of vision that he had. Then he took 2 turns of the harpoon line against the wood of the bow. "I am a tired old man, but I have killed this fish, which is my brother, and now I must do the slave work. Now I must prepare the nooses and the rope to lash him alongside," he thought. "Even if we were two and swamped her to load him and bailed her out, this skiff would never hold him. I must prepare everything, then bring him in and lash him well, and step the mast, and set sail for home." He started to pull the fish in to have him alongside, so that he could pass a line through his gills and out his mouth and make his head fast alongside the bow. "I want to see him," he thought, "and to touch and to feel him. He is my fortune," he thought, "but that is not why I wish to feel him. I think I felt his heart," he thought, "when I pushed on the harpoon shaft the second time. Bring him in now, and make him fast, and get the noose around his tail, and another around his middle to bind him to the skiff. Get to work, old man," he said. He took a very small drink of the water. "There is very much slave work to be done, now that the fight is over." He looked up at the sky and then out to his fish. He looked at the sun carefully. "It is not much more than noon," he thought, "and the trade wind is rising. The lines all mean nothing now. The boy and I will splice them when we are home." "Come on, fish," he said, but the fish did not come. Instead, he lay there wallowing now in the seas, and the old man pulled the skiff up to him. When he was even with him, and had the fish's head against the bow, he could not believe his size. But he untied the harpoon rope from the bit, passed it through the fish's gills and out his jaws, made a turn around his sword, then passed the rope through the other gill, made another turn around the bill, and knotted the double rope, and made it fast to the bit in the bow. He cut the rope then, and went astern to noose the tail. The fish had turned silver from his original purple and silver, and the stripes showed the same pale violet color as his tail. They were wider than a man's hand with his fingers spread, and the fish's eye looked as detached as the mirrors in a periscope or as a saint in a procession. "It was the only way to kill him," the old man said. He was feeling better since the water, and he knew he would not go away, and his head was clear. "He's over 1,500 pounds the way he is," he thought. "Maybe much more. If he dresses out 2/3 of that at 30 cents a pound. I need a pencil for that," he said. "My head is not that clear. But I think the great DiMaggio would be proud of me today. I had no bone spurs, but the hands and the back hurt truly. I wonder what a bone spur is," he thought. "Maybe we have them without knowing of it." He made the fish fast to bow and stern, and to the middle thwart. He was so big, it was like lashing a much bigger skiff alongside. He cut a piece of line and tied the fish's lower jaw against his bill, so his mouth would not open, and they would sail as cleanly as possible. Then he stepped to the mast, and, with a stick that was his gaff, and with his boom rigged, the patched sail drew, the boat began to move, and half lying in the stern, he sailed southwest. He did not need a compass to tell him where southwest was. He only needed the feel of the trade wind and the drawing of the sail. "I'd better put a small line out with a spoon on it and try and get something to eat and drink for the moisture." But he could not find a spoon, and his sardines were rotten. So he hooked a patch of yellow gulf weed with a gaff as they passed, and shook it so that the small shrimp that were in it fell onto the planking of the skiff. There were more than a dozen of them, and they jumped and kicked like sand fleas. The old man pinched their heads off with his thumb and forefinger, and ate them, chewing up the shells and the tails. They were very tiny, but he knew they were nourishing, and they tasted good. The old man still had 2 drinks of water in the bottle, and he used half of one after he had eaten the shrimps. The skiff was sailing well, considering the handicaps, and he steered with the tiller under his arm. He could see the fish, and he had only to look at his hands and feel his back against the stern to know that this had truly happened and was not a dream. At one time, when he was feeling so badly toward the end, he had thought perhaps it was a dream. Then, when he had seen the fish come out of the water and hang motionless in the sky before he fell, he was sure there was some great strangeness, and he could not believe it. Then he could not see well, although now he saw as well as ever. Now he knew there was the fish, and his hands and back were no dream. The hands cure quickly, he thought. I bled them clean, and the salt water will heal them. The dark water of the true gulf is the greatest healer that there is. All I must do is keep the head clear. The hands have done their work, and we sail well. With his mouth shut and his tail straight up and down, we sail like brothers. Then his head started to become a little unclear, and he thought, is he bringing me in, or am I bringing him in? If I were towing him behind, there would be no question. Nor if the fish were in the skiff, with all dignity gone, there would be no question either. But they were sailing together, lashed side by side, and the old man thought, let him bring me in if it pleases him. I am only better than him through trickery, and he meant me no harm. They sailed well, and the old man soaked his hands in the salt water and tried to keep his head clear. There were high cumulus clouds and enough cirrus above them so that the old man knew the breeze would last all night. The old man looked at the fish constantly to make sure it was true. It was an hour before the first shark hit him. The shark was not an accident. He had come up from deep down in the water as the dark cloud of blood had settled and dispersed in the mile-deep sea. He had come up so fast and absolutely without caution that he broke the surface of the blue water and was in the sun. Then he fell back into the sea and picked up the scent and started swimming on the course the skiff and the fish had taken. Sometimes he lost the scent, but he would pick it up again, or have just a trace of it, and he swam fast and hard on the course. He was a very big mako shark, built to swim as fast as the fastest fish in the sea, and everything about him was beautiful except his jaws. His back was as blue as a swordfish's, and his belly was silver, and his hide was smooth and handsome. He was built as a swordfish, except for his huge jaws, which were tight shut now as he swam fast, just under the surface, with his high dorsal fin knifing through the water without wavering. Inside the closed double lip of his jaws, all of his 8 rows of teeth were slanted inwards. They were not the ordinary pyramid-shaped teeth of most sharks. They were shaped like a man's fingers when they are crisped like claws. They were nearly as long as the fingers of the old man. And they had razor-sharp cutting edges on both sides. This was a fish built to feed on all the fishes in the sea that were so fast and strong and well-armed that they had no other enemy. Now he speeded up as he smelled the fresher scent, and his blue dorsal fin cut the water. When the old man saw him coming, he knew that this was a shark that had no fear at all and would do exactly what he wished. He prepared the harpoon and made the rope fast while he watched the shark come on. The rope was short, as it lacked what he had cut away to lash the fish. The old man's head was clear and good now, and he was full of resolution, but he had little hope. It was too good to last, he thought. He took one look at the great fish as he watched the shark close in. It might as well have been a dream, he thought. I cannot keep him from hitting me, but maybe I can get him. Then do so, he thought. Bad luck to your mother. The shark closed fast astern, and when he hit the fish, the old man saw his mouth open and his strange eyes, and the clicking chop of the teeth as he drove forward in the meat just above the tail. The shark's head was out of water, and his back was coming out, and the old man could hear the noise of skin and flesh ripping on the big fish when he rammed the harpoon down onto the shark's head, at a spot where the line between his eyes intersected with a line that ran straight back from his nose. There were no such lines. There was only the heavy, sharp blue head, and the big eyes, and the clicking, thrusting, all-swallowing jaws. But that was the location of the brain, and the old man hit it. He hit it with his blood-mushed hands, driving a good harpoon with all his strength. He hit it without hope, but with resolution and complete malignancy. The shark swung over, and the old man saw his eye was not alive, and then he swung over once again, wrapping himself in the 2 loops of the rope. The old man knew that he was dead, but the shark would not accept it. Then, on his back, with his tail lashing and his jaws clicking, the shark plowed over the water as a speedboat does. The water was white where his tail beat it, and 3/4 of his body was clear above the water when the rope came taut, shivered, and then snapped. The shark lay quietly for a little while on the surface, and the old man watched him. Then he went down very slowly. He took about 40 pounds, the old man said aloud. He took my harpoon too, and all the rope, he thought, and now my fish bleeds again, and there will be others. He did not like to look at the fish any more, since he had been mutilated. When the fish had been hit, it was as though he himself were hit. But I killed the shark that hit my fish, he thought. unhooked the fish and was alone in bed on the newspapers. "But man is not made for defeat," he said. "A man can be destroyed, but not defeated. I'm sorry that I killed the fish, though," he thought. "Now the bad time is coming, and I do not even have the harpoon. The Dentuso is cruel, and able and strong and intelligent, but I was more intelligent than he was. Perhaps not," he thought. "Perhaps I was only better armed. Don't think, old man," he said aloud. "Sail on this course and take it when it comes." "But I must think," he thought, "because it is all I have left. That and baseball. I wonder how the great DiMaggio would have liked the way I hit him in the brain. It was no great thing," he thought. "Any man could do it. But do you think my hands were as great a handicap as the bone spurs? I cannot know. I never had anything wrong with my heel, except the time the stingray stung it when I stepped on him when swimming and paralyzed the lower leg and made the unbearable pain." "Think about something cheerful, old man," he said. "Every minute now you are closer to home. You sail lighter for the loss of 40 pounds. He knew quite well the pattern of what could happen when he reached the inner part of the current, but there was nothing to be done now. "Yes, there is," he said aloud. "I can lash my knife to the butt of one of the oars." So he did that, with the tiller under his arm and the sheet of the sail under his foot. "Now," he said, "I am still an old man, but I am not unarmed." The breeze was fresh now, and he sailed on well. He watched only the forward part of the fish, and some of his hope returned. "It is silly not to hope," he thought. "Besides, I believe it is a sin. Do not think about sin," he thought. "There are enough problems now without sin. Also, I have no understanding of it. I have no understanding of it, and I am not sure that I believe in it. Perhaps it was a sin to kill the fish. I suppose it was, even though I did it to keep me alive and feed many people. But then everything is a sin. Do not think about sin. It is much too late for that, and there are people who are paid to do it. Let them think about it. You were born to be a fisherman, as the fish was born to be a fish. San Pedro was a fisherman, as was the father of the great DiMaggio. But he liked to think about all things that he was involved in. And since there was nothing to read, and he did not have a radio, he thought much, and he kept on thinking about sin. You did not kill the fish only to keep alive and to sell for food, he thought. You killed him for pride, and because you are a fisherman. You loved him when he was alive, and you loved him after. If you love him, it is not a sin to kill him. Or is it more? You think too much, old man, he said aloud. But you enjoyed killing the Dentuso, he thought. He lives on the live fish, as you do. He is not a scavenger, nor just a moving appetite, as some sharks are. He is beautiful and noble, and knows no fear of anything. I killed him in self-defense, the old man said aloud, and I killed him well. Besides, he thought, everything kills everything else in some way. Fishing kills me exactly as it keeps me alive. The boy keeps me alive, he thought. I must not deceive myself too much. He leaned over the side and pulled loose a piece of the meat of the fish. fish where the shark had cut him. He chewed it and noted its quality and its good taste. It was firm and juicy, like meat, but it was not red. There was no stringiness in it, and he knew that it would bring the highest price in the market. But there was no way to keep its scent out of the water, and the old man knew that a very bad time was coming. The breeze was steady. It had backed a little further into the northeast, and he knew that meant that it would not fall off. The old man looked ahead of him, but he could see no sails, nor could he see the hull nor the smoke of any ship. There were only the flying fish that went up from his bow, sailing away to either side, and the yellow patches of gulf weed. He could not even see a bird. He had sailed for 2 hours, resting in the stern and sometimes chewing a bit of the meat from the marlin, trying to rest and to be strong, when he saw the first of the 2 sharks. "Aye," he said aloud. "There is no translation for this word, and perhaps it is just a noise such as a man might make involuntarily, feeling the nail go through his hands and into the wood." "Galanos," he said aloud. He had seen the second fin now, coming up behind the first, and had identified them as shovel-nosed sharks by the brown triangular fin and the sweeping movements of the tail. They had the scent and were excited, and in the stupidity of their great hunger, they were losing and finding the scent in their excitement. But they were closing all the time. The old man made the sheet fast and jammed the tiller. Then he took up the oar with the knife lashed to it. He lifted it as lightly as he could, because his hands rebelled at the pain. Then he opened and closed them on it lightly to loosen them. He closed them firmly so they would take the pain now, and would not flinch and watch the sharks come. He could see their wide, flattened, shovel-pointed heads now, and their white-tipped, wide pectoral fins. They were hateful sharks, bad-smelling scavengers as well as killers, and when they were hungry, they would bite at an oar or the rudder of a boat. It was these sharks that would cut the turtles' legs and flippers off when the turtles were asleep on the surface, and they would hit a man in the water if they were hungry, even if the man had no smell of fish blood nor of fish slime on him. "Aye," the old man said. "Galanos, come on, Galanos." They came, but they did not come as the Mako had come. One turned and went out of sight under the skiff, and the old man could feel the skiff shake as he jerked and pulled on the fish. The other watched the old man with his slitted yellow eyes, and then came in fast with his half-circle of jaws wide to hit the fish where he had already been bitten. The line showed clearly on the top of his brown head, and back where the brain joined the spinal cord, and the old man drove the knife on the oar into the juncture, withdrew it, and drove it in again into the shark's yellow cat-like eyes. The shark let go of the fish and slid down, swallowing what he had taken as he died. The skiff was still shaking with the destruction the other shark was doing to the fish, and the old man let go the sheet so that the skiff would swing broadside and bring the shark out from under. When he saw the shark, he leaned over the side and punched at him. He hit only meat, and the hide was set hard, and he barely got the knife in. The blow hurt not only his shoulder too. But the shark came up fast with his head out, and the old man hit him squarely in the center of his flat-topped head as his nose came out of the water and lay against the fish. The old man withdrew the blade and punched the shark exactly in the same spot again. He still hung to the fish with his jaws locked, and the old man stabbed him in his left eye. The shark still hung there. "No," the old man said, and he drove the blade between the vertebrae and the brain. It was an easy shot now, and he felt the cartilage sever. The old man reversed the oar and put the blade between the shark's jaws to open them. He twisted the blade, and as the shark slid loose, he said, "Go on, Galano. Slide down a mile deep. Go and see your friend, or maybe it's your mother." The old man wiped the blade of his knife and laid down the oar. Then he found the sheet, and the sail filled, and he brought the skiff onto her course. "They must have taken a quarter of him, and of the best meat," he said aloud. "I wish it were a dream, and that I had never hooked him. I'm sorry about it, fish. It makes everything wrong." He stopped, and he did not want to look at the fish now. Drained of blood and awash, he looked at the color of the silver backing of a mirror, and his stripes still showed. "I shouldn't have gone out so far, fish," he said. "Neither for you nor for me. I'm sorry, fish. Now," he said to himself, "look to the lashing on the knife and see if it has been cut. Then get your hand in order, because there still is more to come." "I wish I had a stone for the knife," the old man said, after he had checked the lashing on the oar butt. "I should have brought a stone." "You should have brought many things," he thought, "but you did not bring them, old man. Now is no time to think of what you do not have. Think of what you can do with what there is." "You give me much good counsel," he said aloud. "I'm tired of it." He held the tiller under his arm and soaked both his hands in the water as the skiff drove forward. "God knows how much that last one took," he said, "but she's much lighter now." He did not want to think of the mutilated underside of the fish. He knew that each of the jerking bumps of the shark had been meat torn away, and that the fish now made a trail for all sharks as wide as a highway through the sea. He was a fish to keep a man all winter, he thought. Don't think of that. Just rest and try to get your hands in shape to defend what is left of him. The blood smell from my hands meant nothing now with all that scent in the water. Besides, they do not bleed much. There is nothing cut that means anything. The bleeding may keep the left from cramping. What can I think of now, he thought. Nothing. I must think of nothing and wait for the next ones. I wish it had really been a dream, he thought. But who knows? It might have turned out well. The next shark that came was a single shovel nose. He came like a pig to the trough, if a pig had a mouth so wide that you could put your head in it. The old man let him hit the fish and then drove the knife on the oar down into his brain. But the shark jerked backwards as he rolled, and the knife blade snapped. The old man settled himself to steer. He did not even watch the big shark sinking slowly in the water, showing first life-size, then small, then tiny. That always fascinated the old man, but he did not even watch it now. I have the gaff now, he said. try it as long as I have the oars and the short club and the tiller." He put his hands in the water again to soak them. It was getting late in the afternoon, and he saw nothing but the sea and the sky. There was more wind in the sky than there had been, and soon he hoped that he would see land. "You're tired, old man," he said. "You're tired inside." The sharks did not hit him again until just before sunset. The old man saw the brown fins coming along the wide trail the fish must make in the water. They were not even quartering on the scent. They were headed straight for the skiff, swimming side by side. He jammed the tiller, made the sheet fast, and reached under the stern for the club. It was an oar handle from a broken oar, sawed off to about 2.5 feet in length. He could only use it effectively with one hand because of the grip of the handle, and he took good hold of it with his right hand, flexing his hand on it as he watched the sharks come. They were both galanos. "I must let the first one get a good hold and hit him on the point of the nose or straight across the top of the head," he thought. The two sharks close together, and as he saw the one nearest him open his jaws and sink them into the silver side of the fish, he raised the club high and brought it down heavy and slamming onto the top of the shark's broad head. He felt the rubbery solidity as the club came down, but he felt the rigidity of bone too, and he struck the shark once more hard across the point of the nose as he slid down from the fish. The other shark had been in and out, and now came in again with his jaws wide. The old man could see pieces of the meat of the fish spilling white from the corner of his jaws as he bumped the fish and closed his jaws. He swung at him and hit only the head, and the shark looked at him and wrenched the meat loose. The old man swung the club down on him again as he slipped away to swallow and hit only the heavy, solid rubberiness. "Come on, Galano," the old man said. "Come in again." The shark came in a rush, and the old man hit him as he shut his jaws. He hit him solidly and from as high up as he could raise the club. This time he felt the bone at the base of the brain, and he hit him again in the same place while the shark tore the meat loose sluggishly and slid down from the fish. The old man watched for him to come again, but neither shark showed. Then he saw one on the surface swimming in circles. He did not see the fin of the other. "I could not expect to kill them," he thought. "I could have in my time, but I have hurt them both badly, and neither one can feel very good. If I could have used a bat with 2 hands, I could have killed the first one surely, even now," he thought. He did not want to look at the fish. He knew that half of him had been destroyed. The sun had gone down while he had been in the fight with the sharks. "It will be dark soon," he said. "Then I should see the glow of Havana. If I'm too far to the eastward, I will see the lights of one of the new beaches. I cannot be too far out now," he thought. "I hope no one has been too worried. There is only the boy to worry, of course, but I'm sure he would have confidence. Many of the older fishermen will worry. Many others too," he thought. "I live in a good town." He could not talk to the fish anymore because the fish had been ruined too badly. Then something came into his head. "Half fish," he said. "Fish that you were, I am sorry that I went too far out. I ruined us both. But we have killed many sharks sharks, you and I, and ruined many others. How many did you ever kill, old fish? You do not have that spear on your head for nothing." He liked to think of the fish and what he could do to a shark if he were swimming free. "I should have chopped the bill off to fight them with," he thought. But there was no hatchet, and then there was no knife. But if I had, and could have lashed it to an oar-butt, what a weapon! Then we might have fought them together. What will you do now if they come in the night? What can you do?" "Fight them," he said. "I'll fight them until I die." But in the dark now, and no glow showing, and no lights, and only the wind and the steady pull of the sail, he felt that perhaps he was already dead. He put his two hands together and felt the palms. They were not dead, and he could bring the pain of life by simply opening and closing them. He leaned his back against the stern and knew he was not dead. His shoulders told him. "I have all those prayers I promised if I caught the fish," he thought, "but I'm too tired to say them now. I'd better get the sack and put it over my shoulders." He lay in the stern and steered and watched for the glow to come in the sky. "I have half of him," he thought. "Maybe I'll have the luck to bring the forward half in. I should have some luck." "No," he said. "You violated your luck when you went too far outside." "Don't be silly," he said aloud, "and keep awake and steer. You may have much luck yet." "I'd like to buy some if there's any place they sell it," he said. "What could I buy it with?" he asked himself. "Could I buy it with a lost harpoon and a broken knife and the two bad hands?" "You might," he said. "You tried to buy it with 84 days at sea. They nearly sold it to you too." "I must not think nonsense," he thought. "Luck is a thing that comes in many forms, and who can recognize her? I would take some, though, in any form, and pay what they asked. I wish I could see the glow from the lights," he thought. "I wish too many things. But that is the thing I wish for now." He tried to settle more comfortably to steer, and from his pain he knew he was not dead. He saw the reflected glare of the lights of the city at what must have been around 10 o'clock at night. They were only perceptible at first, as the light is in the sky before the moon rises. Then they were steady to see across the ocean, which was rough now with the increasing breeze. He steered inside of the glow, and he thought that now, soon, he must hit the edge of the stream. "Now it is over," he thought. "They will probably hit me again. But what can a man do against them in the dark without a weapon?" He was stiff and sore now, and his wounds and all of the strained parts of his body hurt with the cold of the night. "I hope I do not have to fight again," he thought. "I hope so much I do not have to fight again." But by midnight he fought, and this time he knew the fight was useless. They came in a pack, and he could only see the lines in the water that their fins made and their phosphorescence as they threw themselves on the fish. He clubbed at heads and heard the jaws chop and the shaking of the skiff as they took hold below. He clubbed desperately at what he could only feel and hear, and he felt something seize the club, and it was gone. He jerked the tiller free from the rudder and beat and chopped with it, holding it in both hands and driving it down again and again. But they were up to the bow now and driving in one after the other, pieces of meat that showed glowing below the sea as they turned to come once more. One came, finally, against the head itself, and he knew that it was over. He swung the tiller across the shark's head, where the jaws were caught in the heaviness of the fish's head, which would not tear. He swung it once and twice and again. He heard the tiller break, and he lunged at the shark with a splintered butt. He felt it go in, and knowing it was sharp, he drove it in again. The shark let go and rolled away. That was the last shark of the pack that came. There was nothing more for them to eat. The old man could hardly breathe now, and he felt a strange taste in his mouth. It was coppery and sweet, and he was afraid of it for a moment. But there was not much of it. He spat into the ocean and said, "Eat that, Galanos, and make a dream you've killed a man." He knew he was beaten now, finally, and without remedy, and he went back to the stern and found the jagged end of the tiller would fit in the slot of the rudder well enough for him to steer. He settled the sack around his shoulders and put the skiff on her course. He sailed lightly now, and he had no thoughts nor any feelings of any kind. He was past everything now, and he sailed the skiff to make his home port as well and as intelligently as he could. In the night, sharks hit the carcass as someone might pick up crumbs from the table. The old man paid no attention to them and did not pay any attention to anything except steering. He only noticed how lightly and how well the skiff sailed. Now there was no great weight beside her. "She is good," he thought. "She is sound and not harmed in any way except for the tiller. That is easily replaced." He could feel he was inside the current now, and he could see the lights of the beach colonies along the shore. He knew where he was now, and it was nothing to get home. The wind is our friend anyway, he thought. Then he added, "Sometimes, and the great sea with our friends and our enemies. And bed," he thought. "Bed is my friend. Just bed," he thought. "Bed will be a great thing. It is easy when you're beaten," he thought. "I never knew how easy it was." "And what beat you?" he thought. "Nothing," he said aloud. "I went out too far." Hot, and with plenty of milk and sugar in it. "Anything more?" "No. Afterwards I will see what he can eat." "What a fish it was," the proprietor said. "There has never been such a fish." "Those were 2 fine fish you took yesterday, too." "Damn my fish," the boy said, and he started to cry again. "Do you want a drink of any kind?" the proprietor asked. "No," the boy said. "Tell them not to bother Santiago. I'll be back." "Tell him how sorry I am." "Thanks," the boy said. The boy carried the hot can of coffee up to the old man's shack and sat by him until he woke. Once it looked as though he were waking, but he had gone back into heavy sleep, and the boy had gone across the road to borrow some wood to heat the coffee. Finally, the old man woke. "Don't sit up," the boy said. "Drink this." He poured some of the coffee in a glass. The old man took it and drank. "They beat me, Manolin," he said. "They truly beat me." "He didn't beat you. Not the fish." "No, truly. It was afterwards. Pedrico is looking after the skiff and the gear. What do you want done with the head?" "Let Pedrico Pedrico chop it up to use in fish traps. And the spear? You keep it if you want it. I want it, the boy said. Now we must make our plans about the other things. Did they search for me? Of course, with Coast Guard and with planes. The ocean is very big, and a skiff is small and hard to see, the old man said. He noticed how pleasant it was to have someone to talk to, instead of speaking only to himself and to the sea. I missed you, he said. What did you catch? One the first day, one the second, and two the third. Very good. Now we fish together again. No, I am not lucky. I am not lucky anymore. The hell with luck, the boy said. I'll bring the luck with me. What will your family say? I do not care. I caught 2 yesterday, but we will fish together now, for I still have much to learn. We must get a good killing lance and always have it on board. You can make the blade from a spring leaf from an old Ford. We can grind it in Guanabacoa. It should be sharp and not tempered, so it will break. My knife broke. I'll get another knife and have the spring ground. How many days of heavy brisa have we? Maybe 3, maybe more. I will have everything in order, the boy said. You get your hands well, old man. I know how to care for them. In the night I spat something strange and felt something in my chest was broken. Get that well too, the boy said. Lie down, old man, and I will bring you your clean shirt and something to eat. Bring any of the papers of the time that I was gone, the old man said. You must get well fast, for there is much that I can learn, and you can teach me everything. How much did you suffer? Plenty, the old man said. I'll bring the food and the papers, the boy said. Rest well, old man. I will bring stuff from the drugstore for your hands. Don't forget to tell Pedrico the head is his. No, I will remember. As the boy went out the door and down the worn Coral Rock Road, he was crying again. That afternoon there was a party of tourists at the terrace, and looking down in the water among the empty beer cans and dead barracudas, a woman saw a great long white spine with a huge tail at the end that lifted and swung with the tide, while the east wind blew a heavy, steady sea outside the entrance to the harbor. What's that? She asked a waiter, and pointed to the long backbone of the great fish that was now just garbage waiting to go out with the tide. Tiburon, the waiter said. A shark. He was meaning to explain what had happened. I didn't know sharks had such handsome, beautifully formed tails. I didn't either, her male companion said. Up the road, in his shack, the old man was sleeping again. He was still sleeping on his face, and the boy was sitting by him, watching him. The old man was dreaming about the lions. The end. Well. Looks like we got through the whole thing. I want to thank you very much for listening to me reading this for you. It's been a pleasure. I'm planning to read other titles as well. addition to maybe trying out some different types of ASMR. In any case, if you don't want to miss any of my upcoming videos, you should hit subscribe and you'll get everything in your feed. Thank you so much for going on this journey with me. I hadn't read this for a long time, so it was really cool to read it again a second time and to have you listen to it as well. I hope you've enjoyed this experience, and I hope to see you again. So for now, take care, be well, and I'll see you soon.